Have you ever felt that whisper of an ancient voice, a story just beyond the edge of your hearing, telling you secrets of a time so old it feels like another world? Imagine standing on damp, primordial earth, mist rising from colossal trees, and hearing the distant rhythmic thud of stone on stone, shaping something impossibly vast. It's a strange thing, isn't it? To consider that before empires like the Maya or the Aztecs even dreamt of their grand cities, another civilization, the Olmec, had already laid the very groundwork of Mesoamerican culture. For centuries, their existence was little more than a whisper among scholars, a phantom echo in the dense jungles of what is now southern Mexico. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Picture a landscape dramatically different, yet fundamentally the same as today's Gulf Coast lowlands. A network of broad rivers, fed by the constant heavy rains, snaking through a flat, fertile floodplain that stretched towards the shimmering Gulf of Mexico. This was a land of abundance, teeming with fish, game, and rich volcanic soil that allowed for multiple harvests a year. A true agricultural paradise, just begging for settlement. But it was also a land of challenge, prone to seasonal flooding, requiring ingenuity to harness its bounty without being overwhelmed. It was in this dynamic environment, around 1500 BCE, that the first subtle signs of something new began to emerge, not with a bang, but with the quiet, persistent hum of communal effort. Small, scattered settlements, little more than clusters of wattle and daub huts, slowly coalesced along the riverbanks, their inhabitants, for generations, focused on the immediate concerns of survival, planting maize, fishing, and hunting. They lived in harmony, or perhaps more accurately, in a wary truce, with a powerful, untamed nature surrounding them, learning its rhythms, understanding its moods, and most importantly, discovering how to coax sustenance from its generous but sometimes brutal embrace. Historians still argue whether the initial population growth in this specific region was driven purely by agricultural success, or if it was also influenced by migrations from other less hospitable areas, seeking the fertile promise of the river basins. What is clear, however, is that something began to shift. We see it in the archaeological record, a subtle thickening of refuse layers, an increase in the size and complexity of dwellings, hints that these once ephemeral villages were becoming more permanent, more substantial. The very act of clearing the dense jungle, an arduous task requiring immense collective effort, would have necessitated a level of social organization beyond simple family units. Imagine the sheer muscle and coordination involved, the ringing of stone axes against ancient hardwoods, the controlled fires clearing undergrowth, all driven by the promise of fertile fields. This shared labor, this communal goal, would have naturally fostered a stronger sense of identity. A nascent community bound by shared toil and shared reward. It's like watching a handful of isolated Lego bricks, each interesting on its own, slowly but surely click together, forming something larger, more intricate, and ultimately, far more resilient. The environment, in a sense, forced their hand, encouraging cooperation, rewarding innovation, and subtly pushing them towards a path of increasing complexity. From this verdant, watery cradle, The first whispers of what would become the Olmec civilization began to echo through the steaming jungle. An ancient conversation starting, one that would resonate for millennia. From those humble beginnings, where maize plots edged the winding rivers, something truly transformative began to coalesce. Imagine, if you will, the emergence of San Lorenzo, not as a sudden flash, but as a slow, deliberate bloom, like a water lily pushing through the muddy surface of a pond. Around 1400 BCE, this site, strategically positioned on a high plateau overlooking the Coatzacoalcos River basin, began its ascent to prominence, a central hub in a landscape of scattered hamlets. It wasn't merely a larger village. It was a burgeoning city, a focal point where diverse peoples and ideas converged, much like a modern-day bustling metropolis, drawing talent and ambition from across the globe. What truly set San Lorenzo apart was its ambition, an ambition carved into the very earth itself. We're talking about monumental architecture here, not just simple dwellings. The inhabitants, with an almost unbelievable dedication, reshaped their natural environment, creating a massive elevated plateau through enormous earthworks. Historians still argue whether this was purely defensive, providing a strategic vantage point, or primarily symbolic, elevating their leaders closer to the heavens. Regardless, it was a colossal undertaking, requiring an immense, coordinated labor force and a sophisticated understanding of engineering. Think of it: tens of thousands of cubic meters of earth moved by human hands, using nothing more than baskets and simple tools. It makes you wonder if they had some ancient version of team-building exercises to keep morale high, perhaps with competitive basket filling or synchronized chanting. And then there were the colossal heads. Even today, seeing one of these magnificent, imposing sculptures in person is a genuinely humbling experience, a tangible link to a past so distant it almost feels mythical. At San Lorenzo, a significant number of these massive basalt portraits were unearthed, each weighing many tons, some over 3 meters tall. The sheer logistics of quarrying these enormous stones from the Tuxtla Mountains, sometimes over 80 kilometers away, then transporting them across rivers and dense jungle, remains a marvel. How did they do it? Scholars propose a combination of rafts, sledges, and hundreds, if not thousands, of laborers, perhaps using greased rollers and human muscle, inch by painstaking inch. It was an exercise in pure willpower, a testament to the power of a centralized authority capable of mobilizing such an astonishing workforce. These heads weren't just pretty faces, they were declarations, solidified power. Beyond the colossal heads, San Lorenzo was a hub of artistic and technological innovation. Evidence suggests the presence of specialized artisans who crafted intricate jade ornaments, polished mirrors of ilmenite and magnetite, and finely worked pottery. This indicates a society moving beyond subsistence, where some individuals could dedicate their time and skill to crafts rather than solely food production, a clear sign of increasing social stratification. Furthermore, early examples of sophisticated drainage systems, carved stone aqueducts, have been found at San Lorenzo, demonstrating an advanced understanding of water management crucial for a large, dense population in a tropical environment. It's like discovering that ancient plumbers were not only efficient, but also had a flair for design. The sheer scale and complexity of these achievements firmly established San Lorenzo not just as a settlement, but as the earliest known Olmec capital, a powerful testament to their ingenuity and organizational prowess, laying the foundation for all the cultural developments that would follow. So we've talked about the impressive earthworks of San Lorenzo, but let's be honest, nothing quite captures the imagination like the colossal heads. Imagine stumbling upon one of these in the dense jungle, half buried, a silent, stony sentinel emerging from the earth. They're not just big, they're overwhelmingly, majestically big, and they speak volumes even without uttering a single sound. Each head, individually carved from enormous blocks of basalt, weighs anywhere from 6 to 50 tons, a weight that would give even modern crane operators a moment of pause, let alone people working with ropes and raw manpower. The sheer audacity of their creation is a mystery that still hums with unanswered questions, a silent conversation between us and their long-dead creators. These aren't just generic faces. Each one is distinct, possessing unique facial features, expressions, and often elaborate headgear. Some wear what appear to be tight-fitting helmets, adorned with intricate symbols that historians still argue whether they represent specific regalia, perhaps for a ballgame, or denote high status, or even lineage. Others display more elaborate headdresses, almost like ceremonial hats, hinting at different roles or identities. Could these be portraits of powerful rulers, ancestral figures, or even revered warriors? The prevailing theory leans towards them being representations of Olmec rulers, immortalized in stone, their visages broadcast across the landscape as a symbol of their authority and power. It's the ultimate ancient selfie, really. Just a tad more labor-intensive to produce. The stone itself, as we touched on before, came from quarries in the Tuxtla Mountains, a significant distance from San Lorenzo, sometimes up to 80 kilometers away. Think about the logistics for a moment. Cutting these massive boulders from the volcanic rock face, likely using a combination of intense heat, cold water, and percussion, then hauling them through thick jungle and across swollen rivers. It wasn't a casual weekend project. It suggests a society with a highly organized labor force, capable of orchestrating complex engineering feats on a grand scale. We're talking hundreds, if not thousands, of people working together, perhaps using wooden rollers, ropes made from local fibers, and immense human strength. It's a bit like imagining a slow-motion, ancient version of a house-moving company, just with much, much larger furniture. The placement of these heads at San Lorenzo is also fascinating. They weren't just scattered randomly. They were strategically positioned, often near important architectural features or ceremonial spaces, suggesting a deliberate purpose beyond mere decoration. Some were buried, seemingly intentionally, perhaps as part of a ritual or to signify the end of a ruler's reign. This act of killing or decommissioning the monument adds another layer of intriguing complexity to their story. While the precise meaning of every symbol and the full intent behind their placement continue to be debated among archaeologists, one thing is certain. These colossal heads were not just works of art. They were powerful statements, embodying the very essence of Olmec leadership and their sophisticated worldview, standing as undeniable proof of a civilization that had mastered both artistry and immense organizational power. A truly shocking fact that still resonates with us today. While the colossal heads certainly dominate the Olmec narrative, and for good reason, they're truly awe-inspiring. The scope of Olmec art and symbolism extends far beyond those monumental visages. Imagine an entire artistic language, rich with meaning, carved into jade, painted on pottery, and incised into small portable objects. It's like discovering an ancient emoji set, but each symbol carries the weight of a complex spiritual belief. Their art wasn't merely decorative. It was a profound expression of their worldview, their connection to the natural world, and their understanding of the cosmos. One of the most striking and pervasive motifs is the were-jaguar, a creature that seems to blend human and feline characteristics, often depicted with a snarling, downturned mouth, cleft head, and sometimes even infant-like bodies. Historians still argue whether this composite being represents a specific deity, a powerful shaman transforming, or perhaps even the mythical ancestors of the Olmec elite. Whatever its precise interpretation, the were-jaguar appears across various media, from small jade figurines to monumental altars, suggesting its central importance in their religious beliefs. It's almost as if the jaguar, the apex predator of their jungle home, became the ultimate symbol of power, mystery, and the raw, untamed forces of nature, which the Olmecs sought to understand and perhaps even control. Beyond the jaguar, Olmec art features a fascinating array of other creatures, crocodiles, serpents, and birds, often depicted with stylized features and incorporated into complex scenes. These animal motifs frequently appear alongside anthropomorphic figures, suggesting a deep spiritual connection between humans and the animal kingdom, perhaps reflecting shamanic practices where individuals could transcend the human form. Imagine a spiritual journey where the lines between human and animal blur, a concept that feels both ancient and remarkably resonant even today. It makes you wonder if they had stories about mischievous monkey gods or wise serpent oracles, much like the fables we have today. The medium itself was often imbued with significance. Jade, a notoriously hard stone, was highly prized, not just for its beauty, but likely for its perceived spiritual properties. The act of carving such a recalcitrant material would have required immense skill, patience, and specialized tools, elevating the craftsman to a respected position within society. Mirrors, often made from highly polished magnetite or ilmenite, also held significant ritual importance, perhaps used for divination or to reflect spiritual light. These weren't simply trinkets. They were conduits to the divine, tools for understanding the unseen world. The very act of creating these objects, from the sourcing of rare materials to the meticulous craftsmanship, was likely a sacred endeavor, a collaboration between human hands and the divine. The artistry of the Olmec, with its recurring themes and powerful symbolism, provides a rich, albeit sometimes enigmatic, window into the minds of this ancient civilization. A truly shocking level of artistic sophistication for their time. Having explored the intricate world of Olmec art and the profound meanings embedded within their sculptures, It's only natural to wonder how these ideas, these precious objects, and indeed, the very influence of the Olmec themselves, spread across the vast and varied landscape of Mesoamerica. This brings us to the fascinating subject of trade networks, an ancient highway system, not of paved roads, but of rivers, footpaths, and shared cultural currents. It's like picturing an ancient Amazon prime, delivering not just goods, but also ideas, all powered by human muscle and ambition. From their heartland in the Gulf Coast lowlands, the Olmec established an extensive web of connections that reached far beyond their immediate territories. They weren't just isolated farmers. They were savvy merchants and influential cultural ambassadors, building relationships with distant communities. Think of it, goods like obsidian, used for razor-sharp tools and weapons, came from the distant highlands of Guatemala and central Mexico. Jade, that most prized and beautiful stone we discussed, was sourced from riverbeds and quarries hundreds of kilometers away, perhaps in the Motagua River Valley. Basalt, for those enormous colossal heads, came from the Tuxtla Mountains. Even shimmering magnetite and ilmenite for their ritual mirrors journeyed from remote locations. This wasn't just local bartering. It was a sophisticated system of long-distance exchange. Historians still argue whether these trade networks were primarily driven by economic necessity, a demand for materials not found in the Olmec heartland, or if they were also heavily influenced by the prestige associated with acquiring exotic goods and the symbolic power of certain materials. Perhaps it was a bit of both, a cunning blend of practical needs and powerful desires. Imagine an ancient luxury goods market where owning a beautifully carved jade pendant or a polished magnetite mirror conferred immense status, much like a designer handbag or a custom-built sports car does today. The movement of these materials wasn't a one-way street. While the Olmec imported valuable resources, they also exported their own unique cultural products. Olmec-style artifacts, distinctive pottery, figurines, and symbolic motifs have been found at sites far from their homeland, sometimes in regions that show no direct evidence of Olmec settlement. This suggests a powerful cultural diffusion where Olmec artistic styles, religious symbols, and perhaps even social practices were adopted, adapted, or emulated by neighboring societies. It's a bit like how pop culture trends spread globally today, but instead of TikTok dances, it was the were-jaguar motif making its way across ancient lands. This widespread influence, evident in archaeological digs across Mesoamerica, speaks volumes about the dynamism and prestige of the Olmec civilization, solidifying their role not just as a regional power, but as a significant cultural force that shaped the very trajectory of subsequent Mesoamerican civilizations. A truly shocking reach for their time. As San Lorenzo eventually faded from its zenith, a new star began to rise in the Olmec firmament, pulling the center of power and innovation eastward. Imagine the slow, almost imperceptible shift, like the center of gravity moving within a complex machine. This new focal point was Venta, a remarkable site located on a low, natural island within a vast swampy region near the Tonala River. Emerging around 900 BCE, Venta wasn't just a successor. It was an evolution, building upon the foundations laid by San Lorenzo, but reaching new heights of architectural and organizational sophistication. La Venta, unlike its predecessor, was a planned ceremonial center of astonishing precision, laid out along a north-south axis with an almost obsessive adherence to symmetry. Think of it as an ancient urban planner's dream, a carefully orchestrated landscape designed to reflect the Olmec cosmos. At its heart stood Complex A, a series of earthen mounds and courtyards, including a massive fluted conical pyramid, believed to be the earliest monumental pyramid in Mesoamerica. Historians still argue whether its unique fluted shape was purely aesthetic, mimicking volcanic cones, or had a deeper cosmological significance, perhaps representing sacred mountains, or even a giant ear of maize. Regardless, its sheer scale and the precision of its construction are a testament to the Olmec's evolving engineering skills and their profound understanding of sacred geometry. But La Venta's innovations weren't limited to its grand architecture. This site is particularly renowned for its lavish votive offerings and caches of precious materials deposited deep beneath the earth. Imagine discovering enormous offerings of polished serpentine blocks, arranged in intricate mosaic pavements, forming abstract jaguar masks, then meticulously buried, never to be seen again, or caches of hundreds of exquisitely carved jade celts, smooth axe-like objects, laid down in patterns, perhaps as a form of ritual purification or dedication. These aren't just random burials. They're deliberate, complex ritual acts on an astonishing scale, signifying immense wealth and a profound belief in the power of offerings to the deities or the earth itself. It's like burying a priceless art collection just for the sheer spiritual satisfaction, a concept that feels both extravagant and deeply pious. The colossal heads continue to be a hallmark of Olmec power at La Venta, though fewer in number than at San Lorenzo. However, La Venta introduced a new type of monumental sculpture. The altars, massive stone blocks with figures emerging from niches or caves, often depicted holding infants or supernatural beings. These altars likely served as thrones for rulers or as stages for important rituals, further emphasizing the divine connection and authority of the Olmec elite. The shift to La Venta signals not just a geographical relocation of power, but a refinement of Olmec cultural and religious practices, making it a site of unparalleled importance in understanding the zenith of this remarkable civilization, a truly shocking level of foresight in urban planning. From the deliberate planning of La Venta, we turn our gaze upwards, or perhaps more accurately, inwards, to the very heart of their sacred landscape, the mounds and pyramids. These weren't simply piles of earth. They were carefully constructed mountains, microcosms of the cosmos, designed to connect the human realm with the divine. Imagine the sheer dedication, the communal effort, as generations of Olmec people sculpted the very land beneath their feet, transforming it into a sacred stage for their rituals and beliefs. At La Venta, the most prominent structure is the Great Pyramid, or Complex C, a monumental, fluted cone of earth and clay rising over 30 meters high. It's the oldest known pyramid in Mesoamerica, a truly astounding feat for its time. Historians still argue whether its unique, almost pleated appearance was meant to emulate the nearby volcanic cones of the Tuxtla Mountains, thereby imbuing it with the raw creative power of the earth, or if it held a more abstract cosmological meaning, perhaps symbolizing a gigantic maize cob, a source of life and sustenance. Regardless, its construction involved moving an estimated 100,000 cubic meters of earth, all by hand, basket by basket, an undertaking that would make even a modern construction crew pause and scratch their heads. It makes you wonder if they had ancient work songs, rhythmic chants to keep their spirits up as they hauled endless loads of dirt under the tropical sun. Beyond the massive pyramid, Venta features a series of linear mounds and platforms, all carefully aligned along that precise north-south axis we mentioned earlier. This meticulous orientation suggests a sophisticated understanding of astronomy and the cardinal directions. The Olmec, much like later Mesoamerican civilizations, were keen observers of the sky, tracking the movements of the sun, moon, and perhaps even certain stars. Imagine ancient priests or astronomers standing atop these earthen platforms, gazing at the celestial dance, interpreting the movements of the heavens for their people. These alignments weren't just for show. They likely had profound ritual and calendrical significance, informing agricultural cycles, ceremonial dates, and perhaps even the timing of political events. It's like having an enormous outdoor astronomical clock, constantly ticking away the rhythms of the universe. The construction of these earthworks, often from different colored clays brought from various locations, was also a deliberate artistic and symbolic act. Layers of colored earth might have represented different cosmic levels, or perhaps even served as offerings within the structures themselves. The sheer scale, precision, and enduring presence of these mounds and pyramids underscore the Olmec's deep spiritual connection to their environment and their capacity for mobilizing vast human resources for monumental projects. They literally moved mountains, or at least created them, solidifying their place as masters of both the earth and the heavens. A truly shocking demonstration of their architectural and astronomical prowess. From the monumental earthworks that reached for the heavens, we now descend to consider the smaller yet equally profound objects that permeated Olmec life: jade and serpentine. Imagine materials so deeply intertwined with spiritual belief that their very acquisition and crafting became acts of reverence. These weren't just pretty rocks. They were living stones, imbued with power, wealth, and an almost mystical significance. Jade, that elusive, shimmering green stone, was perhaps the most prized material in the Olmec world. Its hardness made it incredibly difficult to work, yet the Olmec mastered its carving, producing exquisitely polished shells, intricate figurines, and delicate pendants. Where did they get it? The most significant sources are hundreds of kilometers away, deep in the Motagua River Valley of what is now Guatemala, or in specific riverbeds within Oaxaca. This means extensive long-distance trade networks, likely involving arduous journeys through dense jungle and across mountainous terrain. Historians still argue whether the Olmec directly controlled these distant jade sources, or if they acquired the raw material through established trade partners. Either way, the sheer quantity of jade found at major Olmec sites like Venta speaks to their immense influence and their capacity to secure such highly coveted resources. It's like having a bottomless supply of the most coveted gemstone in the world, procured through sheer determination and extensive connections. Serpentine, a slightly softer, often mottled green stone, was also widely used, particularly for the large mosaic pavements and colossal offerings found at Venta. While less precious than jade, its availability and the ease with which it could be carved made it ideal for larger-scale ceremonial pieces. Both jade and serpentine were valued not just for their aesthetic qualities, but also likely for their color, which evoked lush vegetation, water, and life itself, the very essence of their fertile riverine environment. Imagine seeing a newly polished jade celt, glinting wet and verdant, reflecting the jungle canopy around it, a tangible piece of the sacred earth. The craftsmanship involved in working these stones was extraordinary. Without metal tools, the Olmec artisans relied on abrasion, using harder stones, sand, and water to slowly grind and polish the materials into their desired forms. This was a painstaking process, requiring immense skill, patience, and dedication, transforming raw stone into objects of profound beauty and spiritual power. It's a bit like watching a modern sculptor working with diamond-tipped tools, but then realizing the Olmec did it with just grit, water, and sheer force of will. These jade and serpentine artifacts, whether a tiny, perfect figurine or a vast mosaic pavement, weren't just status symbols. They were expressions of devotion, tools for ritual, and embodiments of the Olmec worldview, demonstrating a truly shocking mastery over challenging materials. From the intricate beauty of jade and serpentine, our journey now delves into the very core of Olmec existence, their ritual and belief systems, the unseen architecture that shaped their world. Imagine a reality where every natural phenomenon, every rustle in the jungle, every passing cloud, held a profound spiritual meaning, a conversation with unseen forces. The Olmec lived in a world permeated by the sacred, where daily life was inextricably linked to their cosmic understanding. At the heart of Olmec belief was a complex pantheon of deities, often associated with natural forces vital to their survival. The most prominent, as we've seen in their art, was likely a jaguar deity, or the were-jaguar, embodying the raw power of the wild, perhaps linked to fertility, rain, or the earth itself. But other figures also emerge from the artistic record: a feathered serpent, a bird monster, and various anthropomorphic figures blending human and animal traits. Historians still argue whether these were distinct gods, different manifestations of a single overarching deity, or perhaps even powerful ancestors or shamans. It's like trying to untangle an ancient family tree where everyone occasionally transforms into a majestic beast. Rituals were undoubtedly central to Olmec life, from grand public ceremonies at their monumental centers like Venta to more intimate localized rites. These ceremonies likely involved offerings, music, dance, and perhaps even forms of ritual bloodletting, common in later Mesoamerican cultures, though direct evidence for the latter in the Olmec heartland is scarce. The caching of vast quantities of jade and serpentine, as we discussed, particularly the meticulously buried mosaic pavements at Venta, speaks to an extraordinary level of devotion and the belief in the efficacy of such grand offerings to ensure cosmic order or placate powerful forces. Imagine dedicating vast wealth and labor, not for personal gain, but for the well-being of the entire community, a testament to profound collective faith. The Olmec also seem to have practiced shamanism, a spiritual practice where individuals, shamans, mediate between the human and spirit worlds, often through ecstatic trance or transformation. The numerous Olmec figures depicting humans with animal features or individuals seemingly undergoing metamorphosis strongly suggest this practice. Perhaps the rulers themselves were considered powerful shamans, their authority legitimized by their perceived ability to communicate with the divine and control supernatural forces. It's a shocking thought to imagine a leader whose power derived not just from armies or wealth, but from their supposed mystical connection to the very fabric of the universe, a truly intimate and profound form of governance. Their beliefs, woven into the very fabric of their art and monumental architecture, provided the framework for their society, guiding their actions and giving meaning to their existence. Having explored the spiritual landscape of the Olmec, we now turn to what might be their most enduring, albeit enigmatic, intellectual legacy, the very seeds of writing and calendrical systems. Imagine a time when knowledge was not merely passed down through oral tradition or artistic expression, but began to be codified, etched into stone, and calculated with remarkable precision. This was a crucial step in the intellectual evolution of Mesoamerica, and many scholars believe the Olmec were the pioneers. The evidence for Olmec writing is sparse and still debated, a tantalizing whisper rather than a clear pronouncement. However, the most significant find is the Cascajal block, discovered in 1999 near San Lorenzo. This serpentine block is incised with 62 distinct signs, some of which resemble motifs found in other Olmec art, arranged in horizontal rows while not yet deciphered, and its authenticity was initially debated. Its discovery provides the strongest evidence to date of an early writing system in Mesoamerica, predating later Zapotec and Maya scripts by several centuries. Historians still argue whether this represents a fully phonetic writing system, a logographic one, or perhaps a proto-writing system serving more as mnemonic devices or symbolic communication. It's like finding a single mysterious text message from ancient times and trying to figure out if it's poetry, a shopping list, or a secret code. Beyond the Cascajal block, other smaller examples of possible glyphs or symbols have been found on ceramics and monuments, often associated with numerical representations. These early signs, though isolated, hint at a developing system for recording information, perhaps related to lineage, important events, or ritual practices. Imagine the very first attempts to capture fleeting thoughts and sounds in a permanent form, a magical transformation of the ephemeral into the enduring. Even more compelling is the evidence for Olmec influence on the Mesoamerican long count calendar and the 260-day ritual calendar, Tzolkin, which became hallmarks of later civilizations like the Maya. While direct Olmec long count dates are rare, some monuments, particularly from Tres Zapotes, bear bar and dot numerical notations that are strikingly similar to those used in the later long count. Monument C at Tres Zapotes, for example, has a date that corresponds to 31 BCE in our calendar, if it is indeed a long count date, making it one of the earliest such dates known. This suggests that the fundamental concepts of these sophisticated calendrical systems, with their intricate cycles and astonishing accuracy, may have originated or been significantly developed by the Olmec. It's a shocking thought that this ancient civilization, often characterized by its monumental art, also laid the intellectual groundwork for charting time and the cosmos with such precision, demonstrating a profound understanding of mathematics and observation that would resonate for millennia. From the abstract world of early writing and calendrical calculations, we now pivot to a more energetic, indeed, sometimes brutally physical aspect of Olmec life, the ballgame. Imagine an ancient stadium carved into the earth, the rhythmic thud of a rubber ball echoing through the jungle, and the intense focus of players engaged in a game that was far more than just sport. This was a central ritual, a spectacle, and an enduring mystery for the Olmec and all subsequent Mesoamerican civilizations. While monumental ball courts, like those seen in later Maya and Aztec cities, have not been definitively identified in the Olmec heartland, archaeological evidence strongly suggests the Olmec were indeed playing a form of the Mesoamerican ballgame. Small rubber balls, believed to be the earliest examples of vulcanized rubber, have been found at Olmec sites, sometimes dating back as far as 1600 BCE. The very discovery of these ancient rubber balls, which are surprisingly durable, is a remarkable feat of preservation. Historians still argue whether the Olmec invented the process of vulcanizing rubber or simply perfected it, making these incredibly bouncy and resilient balls. It's like finding evidence of the very first basketball, but instead of air, it was filled with ancient, springy mystery. Beyond the balls themselves, Olmec art provides tantalizing clues. Numerous figurines depict individuals wearing protective gear consistent with ballgame players. Thick belts, knee pads, and even helmets. Some colossal heads, notably from San Lorenzo, feature what appear to be tight-fitting helmets with ear flaps, leading many scholars to theorize they represent ballgame players or even victorious warriors adorned in their protective gear. If these are indeed ball players, it would imply that this ritual sport was so significant that its practitioners, perhaps even its champions, were elevated to the status of rulers or revered ancestors. Imagine your local sports hero being immortalized in a 50-ton stone monument. The Mesoamerican ball game was not merely a leisure activity. It was imbued with profound ritual and cosmological significance. It was often seen as a reenactment of cosmic struggles, a symbolic battle between opposing forces, light and dark, life and death, played out on an earthly stage. The movement of the ball could symbolize the sun, moon, or other celestial bodies, while the precise rules and stakes of the Olmec version remain unknown. Later versions of the game often involved high stakes, including human sacrifice, though direct evidence for this, during the Olmec period specifically tied to the ballgame, is less clear. Nevertheless, the presence of this ancient sport speaks volumes about the complexity of Olmec society, their spiritual beliefs, and their love for a good, intense competition. a truly shocking level of cultural development. From the energetic rituals of the ballgame, we now shift our focus to the very fabric of Olmec society itself, its social hierarchy. Imagine a complex tapestry woven from different threads, some coarse, some fine, all contributing to the overall strength and structure of their civilization. This wasn't a simple egalitarian society. It was a stratified one, with clear distinctions between those who led, those who served, and those who toiled. Even if the specifics of their class system are still largely a matter of scholarly debate. At the apex of Olmec society undoubtedly stood the rulers or an elite class, whose power was likely rooted in a combination of political authority, religious legitimacy, and control over resources. The colossal heads, those magnificent stone portraits, are widely believed to represent these powerful individuals, their monumental scale literally elevating them above the common populace. These leaders would have commanded the massive labor forces required for monumental construction, orchestrated long-distance trade, and perhaps even served as the chief priests, mediating between the human and spiritual realms. Imagine the immense charisma and authority required to convince hundreds, if not thousands, of people to dedicate their lives to moving multi-ton stones across vast distances. Beneath this elite, there would have been a class of specialized artisans and craftspeople. We've seen evidence of their incredible skill in the exquisite jade carvings, the polished mirrors, and the finely crafted pottery. These individuals, freed from the daily grind of food production, could dedicate their time to developing and honing their artistic talents, creating the very objects that defined Olmec culture and symbolized the power of their rulers. This specialization is a hallmark of complex societies, signaling a surplus of resources that allowed for a division of labor beyond basic subsistence. It's like an ancient version of a highly skilled trades guild, where mastery of a craft brought respect and purpose. The vast majority of the Olmec population, however, would have been commoners, farmers, fishers, and laborers who produced the food and provided the raw manpower for the monumental projects. Their lives, while essential, would have been largely focused on daily subsistence, working the fertile floodplains to cultivate maize, beans, and squash, and harvesting the abundant resources of the rivers and jungles. Their dwellings would have been simpler, their possessions fewer, but their collective effort was the bedrock upon which the entire Olmec civilization rested. Historians still argue whether this social stratification was purely hereditary, or if there was some degree of social mobility, perhaps through exceptional skill in craft or success in warfare. Regardless, the evidence points to a sophisticated and well-organized society, far beyond simple tribal structures, capable of immense collective action thanks to a clearly defined, albeit somewhat mysterious, social hierarchy, a truly shocking level of organization for their time. From the intricate layers of Olmec society, we now turn to a more turbulent aspect of their existence: warfare and conflict. Imagine a world not always at peace, where the need for resources, control over trade routes, or even ritualistic purposes could ignite clashes between communities. While the Olmec are often celebrated for their art and intellectual advancements, the archaeological record also hints at a darker, more combative side, a testament to the universal human complexities that transcend time and culture. Direct, undeniable evidence of large-scale battles or fortified cities in the Olmec heartland is less abundant compared to later Mesoamerican civilizations like the Maya, who left behind detailed stelae depicting battles and captive rulers. However, subtle clues point towards the presence and importance of warfare. The most compelling evidence comes from the colossal heads themselves. As we've discussed, many of these monumental sculptures wear what appear to be protective helmets, similar to those used by ballgame players, but also suggestive of combat attire. Some heads even show damage, potentially from deliberate defacement or ritualistic killing of monuments, possibly linked to the defeat of a ruler or a shift in power. Historians still argue whether these helmets solely signify ball players or if they also represent warriors, a debate that underscores the intertwined nature of sport, ritual, and conflict in ancient Mesoamerica. It's like wondering if a modern-day football helmet is only for the game, or if it also represents the warrior spirit of the athlete. Beyond the heads, archaeological finds include various projectile points, such as obsidian and church spearheads and atlatl darts, which could certainly be used for hunting, but also for interpersonal conflict. While these tools don't definitively prove warfare, their presence in significant numbers at sites suggests that violence, at some level, was a part of life. Furthermore, the strategic location of sites like San Lorenzo on elevated plateaus, offering commanding views of the surrounding lowlands, could suggest a defensive posture, a desire to protect their vital resources and population. Imagine a watchful eye over their fertile lands, always alert to potential threats. The themes in Olmec art also provide indirect insights. Depictions of powerful, often aggressive, anthropomorphic figures or beings consuming or dominating others could be interpreted symbolically to reflect concepts of conquest or the subjugation of rivals. While these are often open to multiple interpretations, they speak to a worldview where power dynamics and dominance were important. The need to control valuable resources, such as prime agricultural land, access to trade routes, or exotic materials like jade and obsidian, would have provided strong incentives for conflict. It's a shocking thought that even in this cradle of Mesoamerican civilization, the timeless struggle for power and resources likely played a significant role in shaping their interactions, adding a layer of pragmatic reality to their otherwise spiritual and artistic pursuits. We've traced the rise and zenith of San Lorenzo, a true powerhouse of early Olmec civilization. But like all great centers, its reign eventually came to an end. Imagine a slow, deliberate winding down, not a sudden collapse, but a gradual shift in the currents of power and human habitation. This brings us to the decline of San Lorenzo, a period around 900 BCE, marked by curious archaeological findings and lingering mysteries. The abandonment of San Lorenzo wasn't a sudden cataclysmic event, like a volcanic eruption or a devastating invasion. Instead, archaeological evidence suggests a more gradual process. What's most striking are the deliberate mutilations and burials of the colossal heads and other monumental sculptures. These magnificent stone monuments, once proud symbols of power, were intentionally toppled, defaced, or buried in rows sometimes neatly arranged in prepared pits. Historians still argue whether this act of killing the monuments was a sign of internal rebellion, a ritualistic decommissioning, or perhaps the consequence of a triumphant rival group. It's like finding a presidential library, but all the statues of past leaders have been meticulously knocked off their pedestals and buried, leaving you to wonder about the political drama that unfolded. One prominent theory suggests environmental factors played a significant role. The fertile floodplains that had initially nurtured San Lorenzo's growth may have become a liability over centuries of intensive agriculture. Soil exhaustion, increased flooding, or changes in river courses could have gradually diminished the productivity of the land, making it less capable of sustaining a large population. Imagine the cumulative effect of constant rainfall and cultivation slowly eroding the very foundation of their prosperity, forcing a slow migration. While the Olmec were adept at managing their environment, even the most skilled ancient agronomists eventually faced the limits of their technology. Another possibility involves internal strife or external pressures. As we discussed, the Olmec lived in a dynamic region, and competition for resources or control over trade routes could have led to conflicts between different Olmec centers or with neighboring groups. Perhaps a powerful rival, like the rising Venta, exerted increasing dominance, drawing away population and resources from San Lorenzo. The deliberate destruction of monuments, rather than simply leaving them, does suggest a strong intentional act, perhaps a symbolic overthrow of the old order. Whatever the precise reasons, the decline of San Lorenzo marks a significant transition in Olmec history, signaling the shift of power and innovation to new centers, but not the end of the Olmec story itself, a truly shocking demonstration of how even the mightiest civilizations can fade. As San Lorenzo receded into the annals of history, a new center emerged to carry forward the torch of Olmec civilization, though with its own distinct flavor. Imagine the embers of a great fire scattered by the wind, igniting smaller but still vibrant flames in new locations. This brings us to the rise of Tres Zapotes, a site that, while perhaps less monumental than its predecessors, proved remarkably enduring, particularly from around 400 BCE onwards, bridging the gap between the early and middle pre-classic periods and leaving a significant legacy. Located further west in the Tuxtla Mountains foothills, Tres Zapotes represented a shift in the Olmec cultural landscape. It wasn't characterized by the sheer scale of colossal heads seen at San Lorenzo, nor the meticulously planned ceremonial center of La Venta. Instead, its importance lies in its longevity and the unique contributions it made, particularly in the realm of calendrical knowledge and stellar carving. This site often feels like the quiet scholar of the Olmec world, diligently recording and preserving knowledge, while its more boisterous cousins focused on grand displays of power. One of the most significant discoveries at Tres Zapotes is Stela C, a fragment of a monumental stone slab bearing what is arguably the earliest long-count date known in Mesoamerica, corresponding to 31 BCE in our calendar. This inscription, utilizing the bar and dot notation that would become characteristic of later Maya and Zapotec calendrical systems, is a critical piece of evidence. Historians still argue whether this specific date was carved by direct Olmec descendants or by a successor culture strongly influenced by them, given the later date of the monument. However, its presence at an Olmec-related site strongly suggests that the intellectual foundations of this highly sophisticated calendar, which could track time over millennia, were either developed or significantly advanced within the Olmec sphere of influence. It's a shocking thought that such a deep understanding of astronomical cycles and mathematical notation existed so early, allowing them to chart time in a way that feels incredibly modern. Tres Zapotes also features some colossal heads, though generally smaller and stylistically different from those at San Lorenzo and La Venta, suggesting a continuity of tradition but with regional variations. The focus seems to have shifted slightly from raw monumental power to a more refined emphasis on recording history and astronomical events. This enduring presence of Olmec cultural traits at Tres Zapotes, even as the heartland centers declined, highlights the resilience and adaptability of Olmec traditions. It serves as a vital link, showing how the pioneering innovations of the early Olmec didn't simply vanish, but evolved and continued to shape the intellectual and artistic landscape of Mesoamerica for centuries to come, passing their wisdom down to the civilizations that would follow. Having journeyed through the rise and fall of Olmec centers, we arrive at one of the most vigorously debated topics in Mesoamerican archaeology: the extent of Olmec influence, often encapsulated in the mother culture versus sister culture debate. Imagine a ripple effect where the drop is the Olmec civilization and the spreading circles represent its impact on every subsequent major culture in the region. But how wide and deep were those ripples really? The mother culture hypothesis, championed by early Olmec scholars, posits that the Olmec were the direct progenitors of nearly all foundational aspects of later Mesoamerican civilizations. According to this view, the Olmec originated key traits like monumental architecture, specific art styles, writing, calendrical systems, the ballgame, and certain religious beliefs, which then diffused outwards, essentially seeding other emerging cultures. The idea here is that they were the original innovators, the grand architects whose blueprints were then adopted and adapted by others. This perspective emphasizes the Olmec's pioneering role, portraying them as the primary source of cultural innovation in the region. It's like arguing that one particular ancient band invented rock and roll, and everyone else just played covers. However, the sister culture hypothesis offers a more nuanced view, suggesting that while the Olmec were undeniably important and highly influential, they were not the sole originators of all Mesoamerican traits. Instead, this perspective proposes that various complex societies were developing concurrently across Mesoamerica, interacting with each other, exchanging ideas, and independently inventing or co-developing similar cultural elements. In this model, the Olmec were a powerful and prestigious sister culture among several, contributing significantly to a shared cultural pool, but not necessarily being the singular mother. Historians still argue whether the widespread similarities in Mesoamerican cultures stem from direct Olmec imposition or from parallel development fueled by shared environmental pressures and continuous interaction. It's a very academic debate, of course, but it speaks to the complexity of cultural evolution. Was it a top-down imposition or a more organic, multi-directional exchange? Evidence for Olmec influence is undeniable in many areas. The spread of the were-jaguar motif, the bar and dot notation for numbers, and certain sculptural styles are found far beyond the Olmec heartland. However, evidence also points to independent developments in other regions. For instance, the Zapotec in Oaxaca developed their own distinct writing system and urban centers, arguably with less direct Olmec input than previously thought. The truth, as often happens in history, likely lies somewhere in the middle, a complex interplay of influence, adaptation, and independent innovation. Nevertheless, the scale of their initial innovations and the undeniable echoes of their culture across Mesoamerica remain a shocking testament to their profound and lasting impact on the trajectory of ancient American civilizations, solidifying their place as a foundational force. From the broad strokes of cultural influence, we now zoom in on one of the most recognizable and pervasive symbols in Olmec art, the jaguar motif. Imagine a creature so majestic, so powerful, that it transcends mere animal form to become a central deity, a spiritual ancestor, and a recurring artistic obsession. The jaguar, the apex predator of the Mesoamerican jungle, was more than just an animal to the Olmec. It was a potent symbol of power, fertility, and the untamed forces of nature. The representation of the jaguar in Olmec art is incredibly diverse and fascinating. Sometimes it appears as a naturalistic depiction of the powerful feline with its distinctive spots and muscular build. More often, however, it is depicted in a highly stylized or anthropomorphic form, giving rise to the iconic were-jaguar we touched upon earlier. This composite creature, with its characteristic snarling, downturned mouth, prominent fangs, almond-shaped eyes, and sometimes a cleft head, is arguably the most distinctive feature of Olmec iconography. Historians still argue whether the cleft head specifically refers to the jaguar's cranial indentation, a birth defect, or a symbolic opening to the supernatural world. It's like looking at a Picasso and trying to decipher if the distorted features are purely artistic expression or have a deeper symbolic meaning. The prevalence of the jaguar motif suggests its central role in Olmec religion and worldview. It likely embodied concepts of strength, ferocity, leadership, and perhaps even the ability to traverse between the human and spirit realms. Shamans, those spiritual intermediaries, might have sought to transform into or embody the jaguar's power during their ecstatic journeys. The jaguar's association with fertility and agriculture is also plausible, given its connection to the life-giving jungle environment. Imagine a deity that could be both terrifying in its power and benevolent in its ability to bring forth life. The motif appears across a vast array of Olmec artifacts, carved into colossal stone monuments, incised on jade celts, modeled in ceramic figurines, and depicted on altars. The consistent stylistic elements of the were-jaguar across different sites and time periods underscore its fundamental importance as a shared cultural and religious symbol, a visual shorthand for a complex set of beliefs. It wasn't just a popular animal. It was woven into the very fabric of their spiritual understanding, almost like a primal force of nature made manifest in their art. The sheer repetition and symbolic weight of the jaguar motif are a shocking testament to its profound impact on the Olmec mind, revealing a deep connection to the wild heart of their jungle home. Having explored the powerful symbolism of the jaguar, we now turn to a more practical yet equally profound aspect of Olmec ingenuity, their mastery of water management. Imagine a civilization thriving in a low-lying, often swampy environment, where controlling the ebb and flow of water wasn't just helpful, but absolutely essential for survival and prosperity. The Olmec didn't just adapt to their watery world. They sculpted it, harnessing its power and mitigating its challenges with remarkable foresight. The Olmec heartland, particularly the areas around San Lorenzo and Venta, is characterized by a network of rivers, estuaries, and seasonal swamps. While this provided fertile land, it also presented significant challenges: unpredictable flooding during the rainy season, standing water that could harbor disease, and the need for consistent water sources during drier periods for agricultural and domestic use. The ability to manage these hydrological realities was a cornerstone of their urban and agricultural success, a truly shocking level of engineering for their time. At San Lorenzo, archaeologists have uncovered an intricate system of underground basalt drains and aqueducts. These weren't just simple ditches. They were carefully carved U-shaped troughs, sometimes covered with stone slabs, designed to channel water. Historians still argue whether these systems were primarily for drainage, to prevent flooding and manage wastewater within the settlement, or for providing a controlled water supply to specific areas, perhaps for ritual baths or reservoirs. It's like finding an ancient plumbing system that, despite its age, still makes perfect sense in its design. The sheer effort involved in quarrying, shaping, and then precisely laying these heavy basalt blocks underground speaks to a highly organized society with a deep understanding of hydraulics and the flow of water. Beyond these engineered channels, the Olmec likely employed various techniques for agricultural water management. While direct evidence of large-scale irrigation canals is less clear than in some later Mesoamerican cultures, they would have certainly utilized the natural cycles of the rivers, perhaps employing methods like raised fields, chinampas in later Aztec terms, or carefully timed planting to take advantage of flood recession. Imagine an entire community living in tune with the rhythm of the floods, turning a potential disaster into a source of renewed fertility. Their sophisticated water management systems, both for urban drainage and agricultural sustainability, highlight not only their engineering prowess, but also their profound practical knowledge of their environment, transforming a challenging landscape into a cradle of civilization. From the vital arteries of their water systems, we now delve into one of the more unsettling, yet undeniably integral aspects of ancient Mesoamerican life: sacrifice and offerings. Imagine a world where the line between life and death was frequently blurred, and where profound devotion was expressed through acts that, to modern sensibilities, can seem quite grim. While direct extensive evidence of human sacrifice, specifically within the Olmec heartland, is not as widespread or explicitly depicted as in later cultures like the Aztecs, the archaeological record and comparative studies strongly suggest its practice, alongside a rich tradition of other equally significant offerings. The most compelling evidence for ritual sacrifice comes indirectly through the artistic representation of individuals holding what appear to be infant bodies or were-jaguar babies, sometimes limp or seemingly lifeless. These images, often found on altars or in jade carvings, have led many scholars to interpret them as depictions of infant sacrifice, perhaps offered to fertility deities or to ensure abundant harvests. Historians still argue whether these depictions represent actual ritual killings or are purely symbolic, a metaphorical offering of the most precious and vulnerable. It's a truly haunting image, a mystery whispering across millennia. Beyond potential human sacrifice, the Olmec engaged in extensive and elaborate votive offerings, the deliberate burial of precious objects for ritual purposes. As we explored with Venta, the discovery of massive caches of serpentine and jade, meticulously arranged into mosaic pavements or layers of celts, then carefully buried, speaks volumes about their belief system. These weren't just abandoned items. They were offerings of immense value and labor, given back to the earth or to the deities. Imagine the sheer effort of sourcing, carving, and then burying tons of precious stone. A profound act of devotion on a monumental scale. These offerings, ranging from hundreds of jade celts to colossal stone heads that were ritually killed and buried, illustrate a profound belief in reciprocity with the divine. A cosmic give and take, where the most valuable possessions were sacrificed to ensure cosmic balance and continued prosperity. It's a bit like giving away your most cherished possessions, but to the gods themselves, hoping for a divine return on investment. Furthermore, the presence of various ritual objects, such as stingray spines and obsidian blades, tools often associated with ritual bloodletting in later Mesoamerican cultures, hints at self-sacrifice or offerings of one's own blood. While not as dramatic as human sacrifice, bloodletting was a common form of ritual offering, symbolizing a vital life force given to appease deities and maintain cosmic order. These practices, whether the symbolic depiction of infant offerings, the vast caches of buried wealth, or personal blood sacrifices, underscore a deep spiritual worldview where the act of giving, even profoundly, was central to their connection with the sacred, a shocking depth of commitment to their beliefs. From the profound depths of Olmec ritual offerings, we now shift our gaze to the highly skilled hands that created so much of their material culture, the masters of craft specialization. Imagine a society where not everyone had to hunt or farm, where certain individuals could dedicate their lives to honing a single, intricate craft, transforming raw materials into objects of beauty, utility, and immense symbolic power. This division of labor, a hallmark of complex civilizations, speaks volumes about the surplus of resources and the sophisticated social organization that allowed the Olmec to flourish. The most obvious evidence of craft specialization comes from the sheer quality and quantity of Olmec art. We've already discussed the monumental basalt colossal heads, requiring not only incredible artistic skill, but also advanced understanding of stoneworking and logistics. Imagine the sculptors passing down techniques through generations, their hands intimately familiar with the properties of various stones, capable of coaxing human-like expressions from seemingly intractable rock. This wasn't just hobby work. It was a dedicated profession, requiring years of apprenticeship and inherent talent. Historians still argue whether these artisans were full-time specialists supported by the elite, or part-time specialists who also engaged in subsistence activities. However, the consistent style and high technical proficiency suggest a significant commitment to these crafts. Beyond the monumental sculptures, the exquisite jade carving we explored is another prime example. Jade, being incredibly hard, demands specialized tools and immense patience. The perfection of the polishing, the intricate details on small figurines, and the precise drill holes speak to artisans who spend their entire lives perfecting this craft. These jade carvers were likely highly respected members of society, their skills invaluable for producing objects of elite status and ritual importance. It's like discovering an ancient school of gemologists, meticulously perfecting their craft with nothing but abrasive materials and sheer determination. Evidence also points to specialized potters who created a range of ceramic vessels, from utilitarian cooking pots to finely made ceremonial wares. Some Olmec pottery displays sophisticated firing techniques and decorative motifs, suggesting a level of expertise beyond simple household production. Furthermore, the presence of polished mirrors made from magnetite and ilmenite indicates specialists who understood how to grind and polish these metallic stones to create reflective surfaces, perhaps for ritualistic purposes. The very existence of these diverse and highly skilled crafts demonstrates a robust economy capable of supporting non-food producing specialists, a testament to the Olmec's advanced societal structure. It's a shocking thought to consider that while much of the world was still in rudimentary stages of tool-making, the Olmec had already established a system where artistic and technical mastery could be pursued as a full-time endeavor, pushing the boundaries of what was possible with ancient technologies. From the skilled hands of Olmec artisans, we now lift our gaze to the silent, watchful eyes of their priests and wise men, individuals who unlocked the secrets of the heavens, the masters of astronomical knowledge. Imagine a time when the night sky was not just a canopy of stars, but a living calendar, a celestial clock, and a divine messenger. The Olmec, much like their later Mesoamerican successors, were astute observers of the cosmos, charting the movements of celestial bodies with a precision that still astonishes us today. While direct written treatises on Olmec astronomy are, understandably, non-existent, the evidence for their sophisticated understanding comes from several compelling sources. We've already touched upon the precise alignments of monumental architecture at sites like Venta. The main axis of Venta, oriented along a true north-south line, suggests a deliberate astronomical orientation, possibly tied to solstices or equinoxes, crucial for agricultural planning and ceremonial cycles. Imagine a vast outdoor observatory where the rising and setting of key celestial bodies dictated the rhythm of life and ritual. Historians still argue whether these alignments were solely for practical calendrical purposes or also held profound symbolic meaning, connecting their earthly realms to the divine order of the cosmos. Beyond architectural alignments, the very development of their advanced calendrical systems as seen in the early long-count dates at Tres Zapotes, points to a deep astronomical understanding. To create a calendar that could track time over millennia, capable of predicting eclipses and celestial events, requires generations of meticulous observation, complex mathematical calculations, and a profound theoretical framework. The Olmec, in all likelihood, were the intellectual architects of these systems, laying the groundwork for the highly accurate calendars used by the Maya and Aztecs. It's a bit like discovering that the ancient Greeks, instead of just philosophizing, had already laid the foundation for modern astrophysics. The consistent presence of specific celestial motifs in Olmec art also hints at their astronomical knowledge. Depictions of celestial bands, starry backgrounds, and figures associated with the sun or moon suggest a pantheon of sky deities and a worldview deeply intertwined with cosmic phenomena. Imagine a world where the sun's journey across the sky or the moon's monthly cycle wasn't just a natural occurrence, but a powerful, divine narrative guiding their lives. This sophisticated astronomical knowledge wasn't just for intellectual curiosity. It was intensely practical, informing agricultural cycles, dictating the timing of rituals, and legitimizing the power of rulers who could seemingly commune with the heavens. The Olmec's ability to decode the language of the stars, transforming celestial observations into complex calendrical systems, remains a truly shocking testament to their intellectual prowess. The celestial observations of the Olmec. We now bring our focus back down to earth, specifically to the intricate relationship between this burgeoning civilization and its surrounding environment. Imagine a dynamic interplay where human ambition shaped the landscape, but the landscape, in turn, exerted profound influence on human survival and development. This brings us to the crucial topic of environmental impact and the challenges faced by the Olmec, a story of both mastery and vulnerability. The Olmec heartland, as we've established, was a region of immense natural bounty, fertile floodplains, abundant rivers, and a rich diversity of flora and fauna. This natural wealth allowed for the sustained agricultural surpluses necessary to support large populations and non-food producing specialists. However, centuries of intensive human activity would inevitably leave their mark. The sheer scale of monumental construction, particularly the enormous earthworks at San Lorenzo and La Venta, required massive quantities of clay, earth, and timber. Imagine the countless trees felled for construction, for fuel, and to clear land for maize cultivation. This extensive deforestation would have had significant ecological consequences, including soil erosion and changes in local rainfall patterns. Furthermore, the very success of Olmec agriculture, based on slash-and-burn techniques and intensive cultivation of riverine lands, could have led to soil exhaustion over time. Without modern fertilizers or advanced crop rotation, the productivity of the land would naturally decline, requiring ever more land to be cleared for cultivation. This increasing pressure on the land might have contributed to the decline of major centers like San Lorenzo, pushing communities to seek new, virgin territories. Historians still argue whether environmental degradation was a primary cause of Olmec decline or merely a contributing factor alongside social and political changes. It's like debating whether the ancient equivalent of climate change was the main culprit or just one piece of a complex puzzle. The challenges weren't just about resource depletion. The Olmec heartland is prone to seasonal flooding, and while their water management systems were sophisticated, they wouldn't have been impervious to extreme weather events or long-term shifts in river courses. A major flood could devastate crops, destroy infrastructure, and displace entire communities. Imagine trying to rebuild your entire village after a devastating flood, year after year, slowly wearing down the resilience of a population. These environmental pressures, while perhaps not dramatic enough for a single catastrophic event, would have been a constant background hum of challenge, subtly shaping their decisions, their migrations, and ultimately, their long-term trajectory. The Olmec's interaction with their environment was a testament to both their ingenuity in harnessing its resources and their vulnerability to its powerful, unchanging forces. A truly shocking demonstration of humanity's enduring dance with nature. From the environmental dance of the Olmec, we now pivot to the thrilling moments of discovery that have peeled back the layers of time, allowing us to glimpse this enigmatic civilization. The pivotal archaeological discoveries. Imagine dedicated individuals, sometimes battling dense jungle, oppressive humidity, and biting insects, meticulously unearthing fragments of a lost world, piecing together a story whispered across millennia. These finds weren't just about digging up old artifacts. They were about rediscovering an entire culture that had faded into the mists of history. The very first colossal head to be formally reported was found in 1862 by José Melgar Unicerrano at Hueyapan, now part of Tres Zapotes. He described it as an Ethiopian head, reflecting the limited understanding of Mesoamerican antiquity at the time and sparking initial, rather misguided, debates about its origins. Imagine the shock and bewilderment of finding such a monumental, distinctly non-European sculpture in the middle of a Mexican jungle. It must have been like discovering a spaceship in your backyard. This early find, however, planted the first seed of recognition for a previously unknown monumental culture. Decades later, in the 1930s, Matthew Stirling's extensive excavations at Tres Zapotes, La Venta, and San Lorenzo truly revolutionized our understanding. It was Stirling who identified and excavated multiple colossal heads and other significant Olmec artifacts, leading him to propose that these objects belonged to a distinct, ancient culture that predated the Maya. His systematic archaeological work provided the foundational evidence, pulling the Olmec out of obscurity and firmly establishing their place as a major early Mesoamerican civilization. Historians still argue whether Stirling's initial interpretations fully grasp the scale of Olmec cultural diffusion, or if they were somewhat limited by the prevailing understanding of the time. Yet his pioneering work remains undeniable. Subsequent decades of archaeological research, particularly at San Lorenzo by Michael Coe and at La Venta by various teams, continued to unearth more colossal heads, elaborate caches, and the architectural complexities we've discussed. The discovery of the Cascajal block in 1999, providing the earliest evidence of Olmec writing, was another groundbreaking moment, constantly pushing back the timeline for intellectual development in the Americas. Each new excavation, each carefully dusted artifact, adds another piece to the vast ongoing puzzle of Olmec civilization, a truly shocking testament to how persistence and meticulous scientific inquiry can unearth the deepest secrets of the past. The thrilling moments of archaeological discovery, we now turn our attention to the tantalizing gaps, the silent spaces in our knowledge, the unanswered questions that continue to shroud the Olmec civilization in mystery. Imagine staring at a magnificent ancient tapestry, knowing that entire sections are missing, leaving profound narratives incomplete. Despite over a century of research, the Olmec remain wonderfully, frustratingly enigmatic, a testament to the vastness of time and the ephemeral nature of ancient societies. Perhaps the most persistent mystery revolves around their origins. While we have clear evidence of their emergence around 1500 BCE, the precise factors that led to the rapid development of such a complex society remain elusive. Was it a gradual internal evolution from local groups spurred by agricultural success? Or was there an external stimulus, perhaps migrations bringing new ideas or technologies? Historians still argue whether the Olmec as a unified cultural group truly existed, or if the term simply refers to a shared artistic and religious tradition adopted by various distinct ethnic groups across the Gulf Coast. It's like trying to pinpoint the exact moment when a scattered collection of small towns suddenly decided to become a major metropolitan area, with all the contributing factors and chance encounters that entails. Then there's the mystery of their writing system. As we discussed, the Cascajal block offers tantalizing clues, but without a Rosetta Stone or more extensive texts, the Olmec script remains largely undeciphered. What stories did they wish to tell? What records did they keep? Were they historical accounts, religious texts, or administrative documents? The inability to read their own words leaves a significant void in our understanding of their inner lives, their political structures, and their historical narratives. Imagine having a detailed map, but no legend to tell you what the symbols mean. That's the challenge of Olmec writing. Finally, the ultimate fate of the Olmec, particularly the reasons for the comprehensive decline and eventual abandonment of their major centers, remains a subject of ongoing debate. Was it environmental degradation, as we discussed, leading to resource depletion or increased flooding? Was it internal social unrest, perhaps a revolt against the elite, evidenced by the deliberate mutilation of colossal heads? Or was it external pressure from rival groups, shifting trade routes, or even epidemic diseases? The lack of clear historical records means we are left to infer from archaeological patterns, leaving multiple plausible scenarios for their eventual fading from prominence. It's a truly shocking thought to consider that a civilization so powerful and innovative could leave behind such magnificent monuments, yet remain so quiet about its own ending. These unanswered questions, far from being failures of research, highlight the enduring allure of the Olmec, continually inviting new generations of scholars to delve deeper into their captivating past. The lingering shadows of unanswered questions, we now arrive at the enduring resonance of the Olmec, their echoes into the future. Imagine a single, powerful note struck centuries ago, its vibrations still rippling through the grand symphony of Mesoamerican history, shaping the very harmonies that came after. The Olmec may have vanished from their monumental centers, but their cultural and intellectual innovations proved remarkably resilient, forming the bedrock upon which later, more famous civilizations would build their own magnificent structures. The most striking echo is undoubtedly their profound influence on art and iconography. The were-jaguar motif, for instance, in various permutations, can be traced through Zapotec, Maya, and even Aztec art, transforming and adapting but retaining its essential symbolic power. The concept of monumental sculpture, particularly the carving of human forms from massive stone, found its way into later traditions. Imagine the later Maya sculptors, perhaps intuitively, drawing inspiration from the sheer scale and presence of the Olmec colossal heads, even if they never saw them firsthand. Historians still argue whether this widespread artistic diffusion was a direct copying or a process of independent inspiration from shared conceptual frameworks. But the visual similarities are undeniably striking. Beyond art, the Olmec legacy is deeply embedded in the very intellectual scaffolding of Mesoamerica. Their pioneering work in calendrical systems, particularly the bar and dot notation for numbers and the foundational concepts of the long count and 260-day ritual calendars, became indispensable tools for the Maya and others. The idea of charting deep time, of understanding astronomical cycles for agricultural and ritual purposes, was an Olmec gift to the region. Think of it. Without the Olmec laying the mathematical and observational groundwork, the Maya might never have achieved their astonishing calendrical precision. It's like discovering that the operating system for every future ancient computer was silently developed by a forgotten genius. Furthermore, fundamental religious concepts, such as the sacred ballgame, the importance of specific deities connected to natural forces, and the practice of elaborate ritual offerings, all seem to find their earliest expressions within the Olmec sphere. While these practices evolved and diversified, their underlying core often points back to the Gulf Coast. The very notion of a stratified society led by powerful, divinely sanctioned rulers capable of organizing vast public works also set a precedent. The Olmec were, in essence, the cultural ancestors of a remarkable lineage of civilizations. This enduring, pervasive influence, stretching across centuries and diverse cultures, is a truly shocking testament to the depth and sophistication of their original achievements. Their story reminds us that even when direct historical records are silent, the echoes of ingenuity and belief can resonate across vast stretches of time, shaping the world long after their initial creators have faded. As the last tendrils of the jungle mist gently embrace the ancient mounds and the whispers of unseen spirits begin to settle, know that the story of the Olmec isn't truly over. It lives on in every colossal head that gazes silently from a museum, in every jade pendant that gleams with ancient light, and in the very foundations of the civilizations that followed. Their innovations, their artistry, their profound understanding of the cosmos. These are the quiet lullabies of a vanished world, still singing softly through the ages. Allow their wisdom to drift into your dreams, knowing that even the most ancient mysteries hold lessons for today. Rest now, Let the soft hum of history guide you into a peaceful slumber. It's truly fascinating, isn't it, to dive into the depths of a civilization like the Olmec. As I reflect on the narrative we've just woven, from those first whispers in the fertile lowlands to the enduring echoes of their genius, I find myself continually struck by a profound sense of awe, mixed with a healthy dose of academic humility. The Olmec, in many ways, embody the very essence of human ingenuity and resilience, pushing the boundaries of what we thought possible for such an early period in Mesoamerican history. My initial reaction, and perhaps yours too, when contemplating the sheer scale of their achievements, particularly those colossal heads, is often one of disbelief. How could a people without metal tools or the wheel quarry, transport, and intricately carve multi-ton basalt boulders over vast distances? It's a question that, frankly, keeps archaeologists up at night. But beyond the logistical marvel, there's a deeper, more personal reflection. These aren't just rocks. They're expressions of power, identity, and perhaps even defiance. Each head, with its distinct features and headgear, feels like a direct, albeit silent, challenge across millennia, daring us to fully comprehend the force of will behind its creation. It makes you wonder what kind of societies they truly were to command such dedication. Were the rulers truly benevolent figures, inspiring loyalty through spiritual connection? Or were they imposing their will through sheer force? The silence of the stone leaves these interpretations open, allowing our imaginations to fill the gaps, but always with a lingering sense of mystery. What I find particularly compelling is the mother culture versus sister culture debate. It's a very academic discussion, yes, but it fundamentally reshapes how we view cultural development. My personal leaning, after exploring the evidence, is towards a more sister culture interpretation, albeit with a very influential big sister. While the Olmec undeniably pioneered many of the core traits that would define Mesoamerican civilization, it feels more organic and perhaps more realistic to imagine a dynamic landscape of interacting, evolving cultures, each contributing to a shared pool of knowledge and innovation. It's less about a single eureka moment and more about a continuous dialogue, a multi-party conversation across the ancient lands. This doesn't diminish the Olmec's achievements. If anything, it enhances them, showcasing their ability to not only innovate, but to inspire and connect with diverse peoples across a vast region. Their influence wasn't merely imposed. It was evidently compelling enough to be adopted and adapted by others, which speaks volumes about the power of their ideas and their artistry. And let's talk about those mysteries. The undeciphered writing, the true meaning behind the were-jaguar, the exact reasons for their decline. These aren't just blanks in our historical record. They are active invitations for future discovery. As someone who enjoys a good puzzle, the Olmec provide an endless supply. It's a reminder that history isn't static. It's a living, breathing field of inquiry, constantly being reshaped by new archaeological finds, reinterpretations, and advancements in scientific techniques. Think about it. 20 years from now, with new technologies and fresh perspectives, what more might we know about the Cascajal block, or about their daily lives beyond the grand monuments? This ongoing conversation between the present and the past is, for me, one of the most exciting aspects of exploring ancient civilizations. Finally, the resilience of their legacy truly resonates. It's a profound thought that the very calendrical systems the Maya used to track time and the cosmos, or the artistic motifs that adorned Aztec temples, might trace their conceptual roots back to these Gulf Coast pioneers. It's a testament to the fact that ideas, once conceived, can have an incredibly long shelf life, evolving and influencing generations far removed from their originators. The Olmec, without leaving behind vast written histories or massive empires that endured for centuries, still managed to imprint their genius on the very soul of Mesoamerica. It's a shocking, humbling thought that reminds us of the power of innovation and the sometimes invisible currents of cultural transmission. So, as we close this chapter, I'm left not just with facts, but with a renewed sense of wonder at humanity's capacity to build, to dream, and to leave behind an enduring whisper in the winds of time.